Let me ask you something. What did you do this morning? You probably woke up, maybe hit snooze once or twice, shuffled to the bathroom, splashed some water on your face, grabbed a cup of coffee, and started your day. It sounds completely normal, right? In fact, it sounds like what millions of Americans over 60 do every single morning without giving it a second thought. But here's the thing, and this is what most people never realize. Several of those simple, everyday morning habits that feel completely harmless are actually working against your body in ways that quietly add up over time. We are not talking about dramatic lifestyle changes or extreme health risks. We are talking about the small, invisible things you do before 9 in the morning that your doctor has probably never sat down and warned you about. Things like the order in which you drink your coffee, the exact moment you stand up from bed, whether you eat breakfast or skip it, and even how you breathe during the first few minutes after waking. These things matter far more after 60 than most people understand, and the reason they matter so much at this stage of life is because your body at 60 is fundamentally different from your body at 40 or even 50. The systems that regulate blood pressure, balance, blood sugar, and inflammation all work differently now, and the morning hours are when those systems are at their most vulnerable. So if you are over 60 and you have been dealing with unexplained fatigue, stiff joints, brain fog, or feeling like your energy just is not what it used to be, stay with me, because what we are going to talk about today might completely change how you think about your mornings. Now, before we go any further, I want to be clear that nothing in this video is meant to replace medical advice from your doctor. Think of this as a conversation between friends where one friend happens to know a lot about how the aging body works and wants to share some genuinely useful information. So let us start at the very beginning, because the very first moment of your morning, the moment you wake up, is already setting the tone for everything that follows. Most people, the second they hear their alarm, immediately swing their legs off the bed and stand up. It feels natural, it feels efficient, and when you are younger, it is usually not a big deal. But after 60, this one habit can actually be risky. Here is why. While you sleep, your cardiovascular system shifts into a slower, more relaxed mode. Your blood pressure drops, your heart rate slows down, and your blood naturally pools a little more in the lower parts of your body. When you suddenly stand up after hours in this relaxed state, your heart has to very quickly adjust and pump blood back up to your brain. In younger adults, this adjustment happens almost instantly. But as we age, the baroreceptors, which are the sensors in your blood vessels that help regulate blood pressure, become a little slower to respond. The result is something called orthostatic hypotension, which is just a medical way of saying your blood pressure drops suddenly when you stand up. And this happens to a surprisingly large number of people over 60. We are talking about roughly 1 in 5 older adults experiencing this to some degree. The symptoms can range from a quick head rush to actual dizziness, lightheadedness, or in more serious cases, a fall. And falls, as most people over 60 know, are not something to take lightly. So what is the fix? It is almost embarrassingly simple. Before you get out of bed in the morning, spend about 30 to 60 seconds just sitting on the edge of your mattress. Let your legs hang down. Let your body slowly shift from horizontal to vertical. Let your cardiovascular system catch up. That tiny adjustment, that 1 minute of patience, can make a real difference in how stable and alert you feel from the very start of your day. Now let us talk about something that almost every person over 60 does within the first 30 minutes of waking up, and that is reaching for a cup of coffee. Look, I am not here to tell you to give up coffee. Coffee actually has some wonderful benefits, and research consistently shows that moderate coffee consumption is linked to a lower risk of several chronic diseases. But the timing and the way you drink that morning coffee after 60 can make a real difference in how your body responds. Here is something most people do not know. In the first hour or two after waking, your body is naturally producing a hormone called cortisol. This is your stress hormone, but in the morning it serves a very useful purpose. It is basically your body's built-in alarm system, helping you wake up, feel alert, and get energized. The problem is that when you drink caffeine during this cortisol peak, the caffeine does not actually add much to your alertness. Instead, it kind of interferes with the natural process, and over time it can contribute to something called cortisol dysregulation, where your body's natural energy rhythm gets thrown off. The practical takeaway is simple. Try delaying your first cup of coffee by about 60 to 90 minutes after waking. Let your body's natural cortisol do its job first, and then let the caffeine kick in as that natural energy starts to dip. Many people who make this one small adjustment report feeling more consistently alert throughout the morning with less of that mid-morning crash. There is another coffee-related issue that becomes increasingly important after 60, and that is the fact that coffee is mildly diuretic, meaning it encourages your body to lose water. When you wake up in the morning, you are already in a mild state of dehydration because your body has gone 6, 7, 8 hours or more without any fluids. If the first thing you put into your body is coffee, which encourages further water loss, you are starting the day in a dehydrated state, and dehydration in older adults is not a small issue. Research shows that the sensation of thirst actually becomes less reliable as we age. Older adults are less likely to feel thirsty even when their body genuinely needs fluids. This means that many people over 60 are chronically mildly dehydrated without even knowing it. The effects of this show up in ways that people often just blame on aging. Things like low energy, difficulty concentrating, joint stiffness, headaches, and even mood changes. Before you do anything else in the morning, drink a full glass of water, just plain water, 12 to 16 ounces. Your body has been without fluids for hours, and this simple habit can genuinely shift how you feel within 20 or 30 minutes. It sounds almost too simple to make a real difference, but the research consistently backs it up. Hydration is one of the most underrated health tools for people over 60, and the morning is one of the most important windows to get it right. Let us talk now about morning medications because this is something that affects a huge portion of the over 60 population. Roughly 40% of Americans over 65 take 5 or more prescription medications daily. And while most people are careful about taking their medications consistently, very few people think about the timing and the conditions under which they take them in the morning. This can actually matter quite a bit. Some medications are significantly better absorbed when taken with food. Others work better on an empty stomach. Some should absolutely not be taken with grapefruit juice, and this is not a myth. Grapefruit actually contains compounds that interfere with enzymes in your digestive system that help break down certain medications, meaning the drug either becomes more potent or less effective depending on the medication. Blood pressure medications are commonly affected by this. Certain cholesterol medications are too. If you have been taking a medication with grapefruit juice in the morning and nobody has told you this could be an issue, it is absolutely worth a conversation with your pharmacist. Another thing worth mentioning is the interaction between morning medications and morning hydration. Taking pills with just a tiny sip of water, which most people do out of habit, means the medication can sometimes sit in your esophagus longer than it should, which can cause irritation over time. Take your medications with a full glass of water when possible, and check with your doctor or pharmacist about which ones should be taken with food and which ones should not. Now here is where things get really interesting, because we need to talk about something that almost nobody talks about when it comes to morning health routines for people over 60, and that is the impact of your first physical movements of the day on your joints and your muscles. Here is what is happening inside your body while you sleep. Your joints produce something called synovial fluid. This is the lubricating fluid that keeps your joints moving smoothly. While you are lying still for hours overnight, this fluid is not being circulated the way it would be if you were moving around. This is why so many people over 60 feel stiff and a little creaky for the first 20 to 30 minutes in the morning. That is normal. What is not ideal is jumping straight into intense activity before giving those joints a chance to warm up. Many people over 60 have been told to exercise, and they take that advice seriously, which is genuinely great. But if you are someone who sets the alarm, makes coffee, and then immediately goes for a brisk walk or gets on a stationary bike at full intensity, that cold start approach may actually be harder on your joints than you realize. Spending 5 to 10 minutes on gentle movement first, something as simple as ankle circles, gentle neck rolls, shoulder shrugs, and a slow walk around your home, allows that synovial fluid to start circulating and gives your muscles a chance to warm up before you ask them to perform. Think of it like warming up your car on a cold morning. The engine can technically run without a warm-up period, but it performs better and lasts longer when you give it a moment to get ready. This brings us to something that goes hand in hand with morning movement, and that is the role of morning sunlight exposure. This one might genuinely surprise you because most people think of sunlight as something that is good for mood and vitamin D production, which is true. But morning sunlight has a much more specific and powerful effect on your biology that becomes increasingly important as you age. When natural light, specifically the blue spectrum light of morning sunlight, enters your eyes, it sends a signal to a tiny region in your brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. That is your biological clock. And in people over 60, that biological clock tends to drift and become less consistent, which is one of the reasons older adults often struggle with sleep quality, waking up too early, or feeling tired at odd times of day. Getting outside or sitting near a bright window within the first 30 to 60 minutes of waking helps reset and anchor your circadian rhythm. It helps your brain know it is morning, which in turn makes it easier for your brain to know when it is nighttime and time to sleep. This simple daily habit, getting some form of natural light exposure early in the morning, is one of the most research-supported strategies for improving sleep quality in older adults. And better sleep, as most of us know, is connected to virtually every other aspect of health. Your immune function, your memory, your mood, your cardiovascular health, all of it is deeply tied to how well you sleep, and your morning sunlight exposure is one of the primary levers that controls that. Now let us get into something that tends to generate a lot of debate, and that is breakfast. After 60, the question of whether to eat breakfast, when to eat it, and what to eat is not as straightforward as it might seem. For decades, we were told that breakfast is the most important meal of the day, and while there is certainly something to be said for not skipping it entirely, the science around this is more nuanced. What research consistently shows is that for older adults, the quality and composition of the morning meal matters enormously. Here is why. After 60, your body becomes less efficient at processing large blood sugar spikes. The cells in your body become slightly less responsive to insulin over time, a phenomenon that can gradually increase the risk of type 2 diabetes if not managed carefully. Starting your morning with a high-sugar breakfast, things like sweetened cereals, flavored yogurts, white toast with jam, or pastries, can create a significant blood sugar spike followed by a crash that leaves you feeling tired, foggy, and hungry again within a couple of hours. A much better morning meal approach for people over 60 centers around protein and healthy fats as the foundation, with fiber-rich carbohydrates added in moderate amounts. Eggs are an excellent morning food for older adults. They are rich in high-quality protein. They contain choline, which supports brain health, and they do not spike blood sugar the way carbohydrate-heavy foods do. Pairing eggs with vegetables like spinach or tomatoes adds fiber and nutrients. Adding a small portion of avocado provides healthy fats that support heart health and help you feel satisfied longer. This kind of breakfast, protein, healthy fat, fiber, keeps blood sugar more stable, keeps you feeling full longer, and provides a more sustained release of energy through the morning compared to the sugar-heavy alternatives most people reach for out of habit. Now let us talk about something that people rarely connect to their morning routine, but that has a surprisingly strong link to long-term brain health after 60, and that is how you engage your mind in the first part of the day. Most people over 60 wake up and immediately turn on the news or scroll through their phones. And while staying informed and connected is not inherently bad, research on aging and cognitive health consistently shows that the kind of passive, high-stimulation media consumption that most of us do first thing in the morning actually puts the brain in a reactive state rather than an engaged, active state. The difference matters because one of the strongest predictors of cognitive resilience as we age is something researchers call cognitive reserve, essentially the brain's ability to stay sharp and adaptable by being regularly challenged and engaged. Activities that require active thinking and problem solving, things like reading a physical book, working on a crossword or puzzle, writing something by hand, or even having a real conversation, build cognitive reserve in ways that passive screen consumption simply does not. This does not mean you need to do an hour of brain training every morning. Even 15 minutes of intentional mental engagement, reading a few pages of a book, journaling, or doing a simple word puzzle can be a genuinely meaningful habit over time. And speaking of habits over time, let us talk about one more thing that is quietly affecting the health of a lot of people over 60 in the morning, and this one is deeply underappreciated. It is social connection, or more specifically, the lack of it. Research on longevity and healthy aging is remarkably consistent on this point. People who have strong, regular social connections age better in almost every measurable way. They have lower rates of cognitive decline, better cardiovascular health, stronger immune function, and they tend to live longer. And yet, loneliness and social isolation among older Americans is at what many researchers are calling epidemic levels. If your morning routine is completely solitary, if you wake up, move through your morning alone, with minimal meaningful interaction, that pattern, repeated day after day, has real health consequences. This does not mean you need to become a social butterfly, but intentionally building small moments of genuine connection into your morning can have real value. A phone call with a friend or family member while you have your coffee, a walk with a neighbor, a local coffee group or walking club. These moments of connection are not just pleasant, they are genuinely protective for aging health. Now I want to ask you something, and I really do want you to answer this in the comments because your experience matters, and other people watching this genuinely want to know. What does your morning routine look like right now? Are there any habits we talked about today that you recognize in yourself? The rushing out of bed, the coffee before water, skipping breakfast or reaching for something sugary, scrolling your phone first thing in the morning? And more importantly, has any of this given you an idea for even one small thing you might want to change? Drop it in the comments. Tell us what your morning looks like and what you are thinking of adjusting. You might just inspire someone else who is watching this to make a change that genuinely improves their day. And if you found this useful, if even one thing in this video made you think differently about your morning, please share it with someone you care about who is over 60, a family member, a friend, a neighbor, because the truth is, most of this information does not make it into regular doctor appointments. People do not get told about orthostatic hypotension or cortisol timing or synovial fluid warm-ups in a standard 15-minute checkup. That is what this channel is for, giving you the real, practical, research-backed information that helps you live better every day. The goal is not perfection. Nobody is going to completely overhaul their morning routine overnight, and that is not what we are asking you to do. The goal is awareness. Because once you understand why these small habits matter, once you understand what your body is actually doing in those first hours of the morning and what it needs from you, the small adjustments start to feel natural rather than like a chore. Start with one thing. Maybe it is sitting on the edge of the bed for 60 seconds before you stand up. Maybe it is drinking a glass of water before you pour that first cup of coffee. Maybe it is stepping outside for 5 minutes of morning sunlight. Whatever feels most relevant to your life, start there. Small changes done consistently are what create real, lasting results. And your body at 60, 65, 70, or beyond is still incredibly capable of responding to the right inputs and getting better. Never underestimate that. Thank you for spending this time with us today, and we will see you in the next one.